Stephen A., what is your biggest takeaway from last night's matchup?
My biggest takeaway is the coming out party of Jaylen Brown. That's what it comes down to me. I mean, this brother's special. This is a young brother in his second year in the league. I've had the pleasure of meeting him on several occasions. He's been on the show once before. This guy wants it, and he wants it bad. I've talked to him on several occasions. He wants it bad, Max. He was one of those guys coming into this season, said, don't count us out. Don't think for 1 second that we're going to concede the division to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's not what we're here to do. Now, obviously, he was playing with a heavy heart last night. He lost his best friend, Trevin Steele. I hope that's the correct pronunciation of his name. But he lost his best friend, found out his friend had passed away, didn't even know if he was going to be capable of playing the game. Told Coach Barrett Stevens that he found himself to be questionable for the game, but went out there and performed after Trevin's mother called him and said that's what he would want you to do, and you know that. And he played lights out. He's long, he's athletic, he's not scared to defend anybody. Believe it or not, coming into this season, Brad Stevens told him his primary responsibility was going to be to defend. Yes, he can hit corner threes. He can hit threes from the wing, evidently, as well. But his primary obligation was going to be to defend because with Kyrie Irving there and Gordon Hayward at the time, before he went down in game 1 of the season, you were at the very least going to be a third offensive option, maybe a fourth because of Al Horford. So he was coming into this season primarily looking at himself as a defender if indeed he was going to get those chunk of minutes that he aspired to have. So when you look at it from that perspective and watch the way that he played last night, watch Kyrie struggle, shoot 4-60 from the field, but get to the free throw line on 7 different occasions last night, hitting all 7 of his free throws, much to the chagrin of the Golden State Warriors. And then you see the youth and athleticism that I've alluded to time and time again as it pertains to him and Jason Tatum and the guts and the rough rider mentality of a Marcus Smart, of a Terry Rozier. You just look at these guys, they defended. Golden State was held to 88 points. The Golden State Warriors were held to 88 points. The only person that showed up offensively was Kevin Durant. Steph Curry had a miserable evening, even though we know we can't count on that happening too often. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. We don't know about the Boston Celtics, particularly offensively. But I think the one thing that we can say is that their #1 ranking as a defensive unit, it's legitimate because these brothers defend. They get after you. If they can hit shots, they're going to be very formidable because they can guard. And if they can guard, I think what's ultimately going to enable somebody else to come out of the East is the greatness of LeBron James. He's going to have to be great in order to get past Boston because they defend, and that's what wins championships.
Michael Jordan, Pau Gasol, James Harden, Carmelo Anthony, Kevin McHale. You know how many great players have been the 3rd overall pick in the draft? You know, sometimes for every O.J. Mayo, who's a useful player and a high school phenom, you have these really tremendous players. And he's the 3rd pick in the draft, Jaylen Brown. He is an exceptional. He has exceptional potential. And he's starting to fulfill it already. He already has a little experience. Tatum, we knew, was polished coming out of the draft. But you brought up defense, Stephen A. Last week, I brought up the fact that the reason I don't think that the Celtics are going to get past the Cavs this year, other than LeBron's brilliance still being, if not in full bloom, then mostly in full bloom, is the bench. I felt the Celtics were a little thin. And, of course, I was paying attention to the offense off the bench. But what I started paying attention to was the defense off the bench. And the defense off the bench is exceptional. So exceptional, in fact, I don't think that they'll be able to maintain this level throughout the course of the season. In other words, a second unit that defends like this, I think eventually will regress to the mean, as they say. And their average might be way better than league average, but maybe not this much better. And I think that's really been the key to the 14-game win streak. The most noticeable thing is Kyrie Irving, who's playing out of his mind. Not just racking up the huge numbers that I knew he'd rack up, but doing it in service of a winning team, elevating the players around him, knowing when they need him to score, when they need him to get other guys involved. He has been fantastic. His kind of chemistry with Horford has been excellent. And those were the 2 guys you figured they'd lean on in the absence of Gordon Hayward. So Tatum and Brown now already contributing to the extent that they are is an amazing thing for the Celtics. But I think the thing that puts them over the top, Stephen A., it's not just the defense, it's the defense of the second unit, which is unusual. Normally you do not see this. In fact, I can't remember a second unit where over a period of games that I've watched, they've defended like this. And if they can sustain this, then they got a shot to get by Cleveland in the playoffs, in the Eastern Conference Finals. But Isaiah Thomas, I've seen that video. Isaiah Thomas is already working out, and he's doing all the things you got to do to play basketball. So if Isaiah Thomas comes back at anything close to full force, those Celtics, even with a great defensive bench, will have their work cut out for them. But if the bench can continue to play defense like this, which I'm cynical about, it's just unusual, they'd have a shot anyway. The Celtics would have a shot anyway.